All right, this is a very important video about modern dating. We're going to talk about beta orbiters, what they are, and how they function in modern dating. So, what a beta orbiter is usually refers to a male who orbits a woman. Let's say with this, we have a woman in the middle, this pink planet here, and the beta orbit is this blue line, and you see there's like all these tiny dots, right? Asteroids or whatever, or moons orbiting this woman. Now, what a beta orbiter is a guy who kind of like waits around in the wings, is there to he wants to date the woman, but he exists in kind of the shadows. He's on like the back burner. But is he? I would say that a beta orbiter truly isn't on the back burner. Now, some of them are way out here, right? They're out in outer goddamn space. They throw compliments at women, but there's no way in hell that the woman is ever going to date them, right? But some of them, they'll at least like respond to, be friends with, would maybe have a tiny bit of conversation with, but there's no chance they're ever going to date, right? Now, a lot of the like incel type of guys, they have the black pillars, the red pillars. They have this idea that women in modern dating, they have this like hundreds of these beta orbiters, and that they aren't going to care about any relationship that they have. They're going to devalue it because at any point they could just pluck one of these beta orbiters and pull them in and date them, right? Now, they could, but they don't. What do I mean by they don't, right? Because some women will date somebody who they've had this like flirtation with online. But what that is something totally different, right? Like there could be hundreds of beta orbiters. There are hundreds of beta orbiters. But maybe there's other ones, right? What I'm about to tell you is that not all of those beta orbiters are beta orbiters. There's a different category that gets completely overlooked and not talked about, and I think is far more important. Now that is alpha orbiters. Because I guarantee you there is, just like there's these guys out here in no man's land, they're like some lunatic, like random 60-year-old or whatever. There are all these other guys. So what they're plucking is never actually these like beta orbiters. It's like one of these alpha orbiters. Now, what is an alpha orbiter? He's somebody who's actually built up some kind of attraction with the woman. They actually have some chemistry. There's actually something there. And so, how can you be an alpha and orbit a woman? How can that be? By definition, you being in orbit makes you a beta, right? No, it absolutely doesn't. Now, how is that the case? Because they don't only exist in the orbit of one woman. Like what you're kind of not understanding is that they are here. Like one of them can be in the same alpha orbit and maybe even some beta orbits of hundreds of women at a time, right? Just like this woman has like this hundreds of guys to choose from. You got to understand these guys also have hundreds of women to choose from. The only reason that they're in orbit is because men pursue women typically, right? So to be an alpha orbiter, you're just somebody who actually has riz. Somebody who actually builds connection and attraction with women. There's actually chemistry there. You actually kind of know them, right? You've done the things you need to. And maybe that woman's single or whatever, or it's just a weird timing. Maybe you can literally be in alpha orbit way closer to the woman and be in a relationship yourself, right? Because say you're in alpha orbit of tons of women. Sorry, I'm sore from work, so I'm kind of leaning back like crazy. But you could be in orbit, like you could have multiple women that you're close to. And I'm telling you, this is most men. Most men are these red dots, right? Like there's this weird perception in society that it's just like hopelessly doomed for men, and that's not true at all. It can't be. When you think about it mathematically, it cannot be. It makes no sense. No, there'd be no relationships, right? Literally, the beta orbit couldn't exist without the alpha orbit. Like, there can't be. Well, women can't have hundreds of options unless men also have hundreds of options. It takes two to tango, and there aren't more men than there are women. That's just not how it works. Unless you live in some weird area, like unless you live in like, yeah, I don't know, some weird remote. If you live on like an oil drill or whatever, out in I don't know, Alberta somewhere, then yeah, it's gonna be like all guys. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about regular society and modern dating. So the internet allows you to be in beta orbit of hundreds and hundreds of women at a time, where the thing is, to be in alpha orbit, you have to be in alpha, which means you have options, and that's the majority of men. It's not hard. It's actually very easy to exist like this. It's, to me, it's like incredibly normal. It's like fundamental. It's just like hardwired. It's hardwired into men and women for like such a thing to exist. And to me, it's something that's always existed. It must have, right? Like, you can literally watch movies from like 100 years ago, where maybe not 100 years ago, but 80 years ago, where there's a woman and she's got several guys interested in her. How do you think that functions? That actually functions just like this image you're seeing, where there's beta orbiters, guys she ain't ever gonna hook up with, and then there's a bunch of alpha orbiters, where it's guys that she would date. It's based off like which alpha orbiter she chooses, but is based off like timing and convenience, right? Like, maybe this guy said something funny at just the right time. Maybe she happened to run into a guy 2 weeks before she was like probably gonna break up with a guy anyway. So she pursues this new guy who could have been a guy she's known for like 10 plus years, where he decided, I'm not going to be a beta orbiter, I'm going to be an alpha orbiter. I'm going to exist in the back burner, on her back burner, but I'm on the back burner for tons of other chicks, and maybe I'm on the front burner. Maybe I got a relationship. The thing is, like, you never really leave the alpha orbit, right? Just like these beta orbiters never leave and they're always there, you have to understand that there's also alpha orbiters. But the good thing is that you can do this too. It's kind of your job is to do this, is to be this alpha orbiter, is to be somebody who builds attraction in several women. This is how you get options. This is how you get relationships. Because let me tell you, I can hit somebody up at any point, right? Like, I literally meet new women, not all the time, but semi-frequently, and I can hit them up and they'll come over. And there's tons of women that I know who are dating somebody who, if they became single, guess what? I might be one of these guys who they pluck. Usually there's a back and forth, though. It's not just they just like select one, like, oh, this guy seems great, I'm gonna pull him in. No, it's a back and forth, because the woman understands that you're in orbit of all these other women, and how you be in orbit is very simple. Like I said, you might not have talked to the woman in 10 years, but 10 years before, when you could have been early high school even, you flirted for 2 minutes with the chick. There's an attraction there, there's chemistry. But you just, neither of you were single at the same time, or just, maybe you were and you just never like pursued it, right? So you're there, there's attraction there. That attraction never like fully goes away. It's just a timing thing. Just the timing works out. And boom, you're in there. It's so bizarre that that this isn't talked about, that there's these terms out there like beta orbiter, when it completely ignores what's actually going on, right? These beta orbiters, there's nothing. There's hundreds of them. They don't have a connection with the woman. They just throw out random compliments, and maybe she hits like on their compliment or replies back. But they're not in the DMs. They're not building an attraction. And even some of the guys that they are in the DMs with are just are still beta orbiters who are just in the friend zone for this chick or just simping for this chick. The thing is that these alpha orbiters, they're not simping for the chick. They're just being a friend or just building a bit of attraction. And that's what they do with like any woman that they're attracted to or could be attracted to. So they exist in the orbit of like tons of women, just like you. Like, think about this. Think of the beta orbiters that you know. We all know them. There's tons of them out there, and you know, because you literally see them complimenting on like complimenting several women all the time. Just like these beta orbiters are beta orbiting tons of other women. Some are like hardcore. They have one-itis. Right, the ones with one-itis are these ones that are truly out in outer space. They're not even like their orbit is so wide, they're like lost and confused in outer space. Like they'll never have a chance with this person, and being so far out of orbit, it kind of like they're so separated from reality that not only do they not have any kind of shot ever with the woman they're obsessed with, but it like makes it so they'll also never have any kind of connection with any woman at all. It's very sad, but those people are kind of lost causes, right? And a lot of the guys get so down on this idea that like, oh well, modern dating is just ruined because women have tons of options right at their fingertips. So do men. You got to understand, most men exist as these red dots. They're these red dots for like 100 women, if not more, right? That's the reality of modern dating. The thing is, it's always been like that. Way before the internet, it just wasn't as like, there's slightly more dots, right? And there's more people on the planet as well. It's not just like the internet's fault. But the thing is, just as there's more red dots and there's more blue dots, those pink dots, that big one in the middle, there's a lot more of those, right? That's the beautiful thing, is men also have tons of options. If I'm wrong about this, then please explain to me why my ugly mug has several women that I could hit up at any point and they're going to be coming over, or maybe they want me to come over. You know, like how does that happen then? If I'm wrong at all about this, right? So you become an alpha orbiter by not orbiting. By just being a normal, friendly guy who like cares enough that his social interactions with women are positive, so there's at least a tiny bit of attraction. And so, like, she's gonna her perception of you is that good interaction that you had, and she's, you know, maybe she's singled down the road when she's actually looking. That can become something. So that's how modern dating works. And I find it so weird that like people don't talk about this in the right way. Because like what is a beta orbiter? I don't people throw out this term as though like it makes any sense when to me there's a clear line, this blue line, there's a clear, crystal clear division. And you can't say the term beta orbiter and be referring to all of these people or just the red dots. That doesn't make any sense, because that's not beta. That's just doing the logical, smart thing in modern dating. Like, I always say this, it's your job as a man to build an attraction from a woman. It is fundamentally your job. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job. Of course you're not getting dates, because you're failing at the very basic first step of the process. Like, do your job here and do like what you're biologically made to do, which is attract women. My God, there is such a clear division here in what I'll put an A for alpha, which means you're in the orbit of a ton of different women, which means you're not really orbiting them at all in a certain sense. Like it's almost like they exist in your orbit. Like I was saying, I can pluck several women. And I've always had that ability. That's always been a thing my entire adult life. I've had that option. Even my teenage life, I've had options, right? Where I've had women in my orbit and I can pluck them out. And I'm not a good looking dude. Like, oh, I never has been. I've always looked like this. So just if you're an alpha orbiter, that woman is also existing in your orbit as well. So maybe I should make some of these a little bit bigger. Because that's ultimately what's going on. That's kind of the principle at hand here, is that that attraction it's not just like you're making it so it's making it so you're being more pulled towards her and she's also being more pulled towards you, right? Like you're making yourself a bigger moon of this person, and this person, a lot of times, a lot of women are basically, like, it's hard to call it simping, but it's basically simping. Like, they're existing in the orbit of men. So becoming this as a man, you're actually like pulling the woman towards you, and like pulling yourself towards the woman by putting in less effort, by making it clear that like I have confidence and I have value and she would be really lucky to be with me. Because a lot of times in these scenarios, right, like you probably know, like I want to help men genuinely, and that's why I'm even talking about this. But think about women that you know where they were dating some guy and then they date another guy. A lot of times it feels completely random. Like you think like, all right, well, like she became single, now she's dating this guy. Why? Like what happened there? She's dating this guy and this guy seems lame. This guy seems lamer than the guy she was dating before. What's happening there? It's timing. It's just a basic timing thing. It's like, imagine this is swirling, right? Like this is I'll use like a green line. Like you're actually rotating. You're actually in orbit. And say these red dots are crashing into each other. And just like sperm to an egg, almost through like randomness. It's not entirely randomness. It's riz, the right riz at the right moment. Not that there's like not and by riz I don't mean pickup lines. I just mean an attraction, right? Like it already exists to some extent, or it begins to exist, and then just the right spark happens. Something happens. There's some kind of communication, some kind of riz happens, and sometimes it can be the woman rizzing the man. Real simple. And then something happens, and then boom, they connect, and they start dating. That's how it is. It's actually really simple, and it's actually really easy to be this red dot. It's what you should be doing. It's what you always should have been doing. You should be this red dot for like as many women as you conceivably can. Right? Like it's like that. That's how like most men are. Like most men understand this concept very clearly. It's just that most of those men don't care to like look into this stuff. They exist as just what most men are realistically is in like high school or something, or their early adulthood. They were in these red dots for multiple women. They were alpha orbiting some women, and they built the connection with that woman, and now they're like married or they're in a long-term relationship. So they don't give a shit, right? Like they still might exist as like one of these red dots out here for a few different women, but it doesn't matter. They're off the market. They're not pulling anybody in anyway. They don't give a crap. They're married. They're in a committed relationship. They still have an attraction. There's still chemistry with somebody, but it's irrelevant. It's it doesn't matter until they get divorced or whatever, and then maybe they put themselves out there. All of a sudden, All of a sudden they're a big one. They got a big old hog, and all of a sudden that connection, boom. That can happen. That certainly does happen. But most men, they grasp this kind of idea. No, maybe not even most men, because like if it's a kind of thing where if you like actually explained it to most men, they would be able to understand it. I'm not saying that they fundamentally like understand it to begin with, or it's like a thing that like teenage guys talk about, or like early adulthood guys talk about, but like it is and it isn't. They don't go this deep into explaining it and having a diagram because it's just core to them. It's fundamental. They understand like, hey, several women are into me. I'm into several women. Like maybe I'll date one of these women. Maybe like the timing's gonna work out. I'm gonna keep rizzing all these women. I'm gonna keep building up to a larger dot for literally every woman that I'm alpha orbiting. Now they probably don't even consciously think about it, right? But they do it, and they're making themselves more attractive just by being like fun to be around, being a good time, showing interest in whoever they're trying to rizz up. Boom. All of a sudden they're a big dog and they're getting women. So I don't know what guys like. When you're in a relationship with a woman, what you need to be is like, you need to become this realistically. You're here. You're like, you become a nucleus, right? Sort of thing. And what naturally will happen, barring stuff going wrong down the road, is all this is going to kind of like become further away and become irrelevant. Now, granted, there's a lot of scummy, cheating people out there, but I'm messing around with it. That's kind of what happens is you build that attraction. You build that connection. And you keep it going. You keep it strong. What's truly happening as well is not only some of these will just disappear, and some of these will become like smaller and smaller as time goes on. Right? Like, that's just what's actually happening. And it's weird. It's weird that there's so much conversation. That I've heard the word beta orbiter for years, but I've never heard somebody talk about this basic concept, which I think that it's bizarre to me as somebody who has like male friends, like who knows men, talks to men. Like, men like to talk about like dating and sex and whatever and hookups, all that kind of stuff, just as much as women do, if not potentially more. Who knows? But this is the kind of stuff we talk about, not in these kinds of terms, not to this extent, but hey, I got this woman who, just like women will talk to each other about all kinds of guys they have on the back burner, that's what men talk to each other about. Because that's how it is. That's how it is for like most men. They got tons of women on the back burner, and they're having to exclude them. Like what I'm doing now with just erasing. That's basically what's going on, right? Like, let's make this a blue dot, and let's say these red ones are like, let's say I'm the blue dot, and this is all women out here. Sometimes you got to erase them. That's the reality. And you're constantly adding more. But you get some standards, of course. Some get out of there, more come in, you meet more people, it grows, it shrinks, it grows. Yeah, so Tell me your thoughts on this topic in the comments. I'd love to hear and discuss more.